Boom, baby. We are live. Welcome to Inner Game July, episode 14, Healing Trauma Live Demonstration. So, what we're going to be doing today actually is we're going to be showing you guys we're going to do our best to show you a live demonstration of how one of the hypnotherapy techniques, that Paul is going to be demonstrating. Is this actually hypnotherapy, Paul, or is it what is it?
Nah, it's not actually considered hypnotherapy,
okay.
But it's a mental conditioning exercise or mental conditioning technique that's very valuable, and it'll be good for everybody to not only get a demonstration, but kind of be able to use it with, of course, a lot of caveats with that, which we'll give, before we do it. So,
right. So, I actually did this session with Paul after our episode, and we had extreme amounts of demand with people wanting Paul back for his knowledge and all of the wisdom and just raw intelligence that he brings to men around the world. I mean, the guy is literally booked solid with men across the planet seeking his expertise. Again, we don't necessarily on this channel, I don't just seek people out just because they have a big following. I don't clout chase here. I quality chase, and I've met Paul in real life. Paul has been an esteemed member of the Masculine Empowerment Network, and he is also in Richard Cooper's 1% group. Rich gave him the stamp of approval. I give him the stamp of approval. Not that Paul needs us to give him any approval whatsoever. However, he does have our blessings, and we really respect him. I respect him. Richard Cooper respects him. And I just think that, Paul, you are really a fantastic man. You really are. And you bring a lot to the table. And I think you're a really sincere guy. And I think a lot of men can learn from you. Because you're a killer, you're a badass, but you're also super intelligent. You're you're a seducer. You're really like a modern day Renaissance man. And I think all these people can really learn from you, mate.
Thanks, brother. No, I appreciate it. And I appreciate, of course, the support from everyone on your channel. Your support, Rich's support, people on the Real Zero, and pretty much everybody. I mean, it's been pretty good. And I've been glad that I've been able to kind of, talk to dudes and help them out really as best as I can with some of these different things, and EMDR is just one of those techniques. So the reason it's a little different than hypnotherapy, just to clarify, is we're dealing. It's really it's a neurological conditioning technique, right? So hypnotherapy is designed to get into the unconscious mind and change limiting thoughts or beliefs or emotions from the unconscious. So you have your unconscious mind, the things that you're aware of, and then you have your unconscious mind. Now, there's different models to like how people look at the unconscious mind. I'm more of a behavioral psychology type of a person. I'm looking for results. And so the way I look at the unconscious, it's really just patterns of behaviors, thoughts, emotions, beliefs that have served you in some capacity in the past. And now that's what's in the sort of background in your firmware, dictating sort of your decisions in the current, So let's say, and that doesn't mean though that those things were necessarily good things, right? So let's say somebody has an unconscious belief that was developed, that, they're not good enough or they're not going to be successful based on people telling them that when they were younger. Right. And so then that unconscious
arbitrary reason.
Right. Whatever it is, you know what I mean? And so that unconscious belief now kind of clouds their decision-making in the current present time as they're making decisions and trying to move forward with their life and do different things. Right. And so hypnotherapy is designed for, in that case, to kind of go backwards and sort of challenge those limiting beliefs and go back into someone's past, someone's history, someone's memories, and sort of, get a different unconscious connotation to those things. Another thing like hypnotherapy is really good for, let's say like phobias, you know what I mean? Someone has an irrational fear of something. I mean, we have fears of things that are sort of natural, like heights, fear of heights is sort of a natural thing, but we can unconsciously change kind of the way that we look at heights and our responses to that through that method, right? And there's other ways of changing things with our brain too. One thing is getting the logical understanding of it, right? So when somebody reads, let's say, the Rational Male to understand the sexual marketplace and how women are, that's one thing that's kind of important, right? Or they watch your channel, they watch my channel, we do a video on a topic dealing with sexual marketplace or female nature or whatever. Having a logical understanding is kind of important. That's, one thing that they need in order to make decisions moving forward. But they could have things in their unconscious mind that are preventing them from acting on the new information that they have. But unconscious isn't the only thing either. There's also behavioral conditioning and neurological conditioning. Like, we do things based on responses that we've developed. So, for example, you might look back at an ex-girlfriend that you've broken up with, right? Like the one-itis scenario. Somebody might look back at their one-itis and their BPD ex-girlfriend they're having trouble with. They have a bunch of emotions coupled to that experiences. You know what I mean? And so they've have distress coupled with that breakup. They've learned and paired a neurological connection between an emotion and a thought or belief or connotation with that event. And so some of these things, like when dealing with trauma, is we're actually unlearning or uncoupling that neurological connection to distressing emotions from an event. So that's what EMDR is doing. It's not so much using the unconscious mind where we're sort of going through a journey into your brain and you're sort of, pulling out stuff and talking, you're under hypnotherapy, talking about things or solving problems or getting different beliefs in order. That's more of a we say logical journey, although it's logical in the unconscious rather than conscious, right? This is more behavioral. All right. I think of, this past relationship, and I have a lot of negative, bad feelings about that breakup and all that stuff, and bad attachments and healthy attachments. That's created a damage or trauma for me. So, my brain is telling me that this is dangerous and that anything that it resembles this thing in the future is potential danger for you. And so let's use that example again. Bad breakup. Someone goes through a bad breakup. It's really toxic. They had a lot of emotions and feelings wrapped up into it.
Could you, for people, because toxic is kind of subjective.
Sure.
How would, like, what would be like the type of breakup exactly?
Well, where they're deeply devalued in by her behavior or words,
Like shouting, screaming, punching, fighting.
Right. Those can be things. And sometimes it can just be simply being told or given the signals that they're not good enough to be with this other person or to be with anybody or whatever. A major existential threat for us as men is having our reproductive value challenged and not being able to mate. That's like on a chimpanzee hindbrain, mammalian brain level, huge threat. Bigger threat to your survival is a threat to your ability to produce offspring or mate in the marketplace. And so 60% of men in our history never had children, never were able to mate. They were cut off from that ability by women or other men in the tribe, or ostracized from having reproductive opportunities. So that was a real serious threat. And our genetic imperative is to propagate our species, right? Which is to, put our DNA to the next generation. Now, it doesn't matter, like, if logically you don't want kids and, that's okay. Like, that's your logical human decision, but your biological imperative is an instinctual one. It's different. And so when somebody sends a signal that you are not genetically fit enough to mate by devaluing you, so somebody you've put your emotional energy and time into is now is sending messages to you that you're not genetically fit enough for her, and therefore not genetically fit enough to be in the sexual marketplace and to be mating and propagating your DNA. That's a massive threat on an instinctual level. It would be better for men to have their life threatened than that. And this is why breakups can be so toxic and tragic for men, and being screwed over by women and these sorts of things can be really, really bad for men, and in ways that the general society doesn't want to recognize. Society wants to tell you to suck it up and, don't be, don't be this weak, man, it's just a chick or whatever. Girls will just sort of, laugh it off when they screw dudes over like it's nothing. They don't understand, like, that's a bigger threat to that man on an instinctual level than, his own life. This is why guys take their lives based on relationships not working out, based on, girlfriends and wives and cheating on them and stuff like that. And so it might not be even a lot of yelling, but maybe she just cheats, or maybe she just says, you know what, I don't, this isn't something I want anymore. And, you're just not, you're this, you're that, you're a big fat loser, this, that, and the other. And she just no contacts them and goes away. And then, screws the dude's friend or someone in a social circle a month later. And it doesn't have to be this massive yelling, throwing a brick through your car window kind of situation for it to be toxic. If it attacks who you are on a level of your identity and personal personal value, like how you perceive yourself and the value you have in yourself, then that's a trauma. Getting the crap kicked out of you, let's say, when you're a kid, it's not the physical violence that creates the trauma. Right. You heal from that stuff. It's the devaluing. It's having that message that you're not worth shit, and having that attack on your identity. An attack on your identity is the biggest attack you can have. Attack on your reproductive value, as well as just your identity as a whole and your ability to be valuable to society, to the tribe, to other people around you. So that's the other thing. I say that, women have to be good chimps, right? Women seek society out and social proof and all that stuff more than men. Right. But men have to be valuable chimps or useful chimps. If you're made to believe that you're not useful, because you're worthless, right? That is, there's an instinctual part of men to want to take themselves out of the gene pool. The reason why men to take that final solution, if you want to call it, 5 times more than women, right, is because women have reproductive value and they can carry a baby. As men, we don't. So if we're told we don't have reproductive value and we're a drain on resources for the tribe, men will have a feeling of wanting to self-select or take themselves out of the gene pool so that the offspring can survive into the next generation. It's instinctual. So we're more prone to deciding to want to take a final solution, you know what I mean? And off ourselves or whatever, because we don't feel valuable or useful to those around us, and we don't have reproductive value. And so being an incel, in a sense, is the biggest danger that to himself. That man is a danger to himself and really a danger to society, right? Because Absolutely. He may take himself out, all right, one way or the other, or he may, in his frustration and anger and complete psychological, disarray, take out other people in the process. And this is the things we see with mass shooters, stuff like that. Right. These are guys who don't feel they have reproductive value or value in society, and they're angry now at society and everybody for that, and they take themselves out. It creates a deep psychological problem. And so these things are massive, right? Massive issues that, we don't address these things, and they're very unique to men. Instead, the social, society is going to blame men, call men violent, call men this and that and the other, really blame men for being masculine. And that's why these problems. No one says, okay, wait, these men are actually hurting. They have trauma, they have damage that they need to overcome. They have to get a sense of identity and a sense of self and understand where they're useful, at the very least, in a minimal sense, useful to themselves and to everyone else around them, in order to want to, thrive and do well. And then, of course, having some reproductive value. These are massive things. And we can sit here and dick around and talk about, oh, getting girls, it's not that important, blah, blah, blah. Okay, look, having women as your mental point of origin obviously isn't the answer. We can obviously, right? But having reproductive value is really important, because without that, dudes don't have a sense. It's only they're hanging by a thread or a string. No reproductive value and no sense of value to their society as a whole, and they're a walking time bomb. You know what I mean? To themselves and to others. It's a real problem, man. And so this is why these techniques are so important, because back to EMDR and back to mental conditioning and some of these things, we want to recondition behaviorally our responses to the environment. When someone says you're not shit, you're not good enough, I want to have a conditioned response that laughs at them and says, oh yeah, and then makes me more motivated to do well, versus having a conditioned response of believing, let's say those who might say that. And I can keep going through down the list. But these things, some of these patterns develop when we're young and we're impressionable. We're developing emotional maturity. We're developing mental maturity. We're not really there yet. We don't have a sense of identity yet. And then we have the outside world, which could be poor or absent parenting, woke social justice, sort of feminized, school teachers and caregivers and stuff like that don't value masculinity or men. Kids in school and stuff that, have bad upbringings, that don't really know how to treat other people with, care and respect and those sorts of things growing up. And that's the bullying thing and some of these other, and social ostracization and these things that happen. These happen to a lot of these guys, and they get a conditioned response from that's designed to help them survive. So my response to this is to have this belief pattern or this sense of distress when, I'm in a relationship with a girl. I have immediate distress, because she could hurt me like the last one, and like my mom did, and like I watched my sister do to, her boyfriend growing up, and, all of that proof as to why you need to protect yourself. Instead of protecting yourself from a logical standpoint, and looking at the data, seeing things from a neutral standpoint and going, okay, I know what's going on here. I have an understanding, and I'm going to now make the best decision for me moving forward. And that's how I protect myself. It's coming from just an emotional distress response, which, by the way, is great for survival. If I'm in a survival situation and I have to react like, oh shit, and just react to the environment because my life is in danger, that's great. That's fine. That's what it's designed for. But unfortunately, that's not very useful for self-actualization, self-improvement, and moving through life and getting, the things that we want out of life. I mean, taking yourself out of the gene pool because you're not valuable enough is maybe great from the survival standpoint of children in a tribe. Okay. But really terrible for that individual who's not going to be dead by 25 or 30 anymore, because it's not hunter-gatherer times, but he's going to live to be 80, 85 years old and needs to find a sense of purpose and value for himself and for the world and have a good life. I mean, we're different now in what we expect out of our lives, what we expect from ourselves, and our brains aren't evolved to handle those differences yet. And so this is where we do these mental conditioning things to actually get there. I would never look at somebody who's never lifted a weight before in his life and say, all right, dude, let's get on the bar. You're going to pull 600 today. You know what I mean? Like, watch a spine end up on the floor, right? We're not gonna do that. You know what I mean? But in same thing with our minds, though. Like, our minds need to be worked on to get sharp. Now, our minds do the work every day on their own, but it's done sort of without any direction or intentionality. So some of the things you develop, guys in the chat, guys in the audience watching, some of these things that you guys develop as coping mechanisms are good, like this on accident, like, you know what I mean? Like this personality trait you have, this response to the environment has been really useful for you, and it's actually a really good response. cool. But then some of these other ways of coping or handling things are not so good and not serving you well, you know? And so we want to be able to change and challenge those behaviors by recognizing what they are, where they come from, which is half the battle, is determining what the hell's going on with you. And then from there, we can start altering or changing those patterns. So you have a connotation to an X where, you know, you have these sick, terrible feelings about, let's say, a BPD-X. And then on top of that, you're attracted now to BPD women in the future because the BPD women of a woman of your past devalued you. In order for you to gain your sense of value back, you could win over another BPD woman and pull her in and make her love you and make her overcome all of her dysfunctions. And then she loves you and says you're valuable. And now you've overcome this deep sense of lack of value you got from the previous relationship. Let's look at that pattern for a minute. Well, if I can uncouple the neurological connection to distress from that chick in the first place and to that attraction to that toxic behavior and relearn a new emotional connotation or connection to those things and build or develop a new emotional connotation to healthier, hotter women and better women that aren't going to act like crazy people with personality disorders.
Right.
Now you're winning. Now you're breaking this pattern of toxic relationships.
And
You know what I mean?
I think a lot of guys in our space, right? You gotta water up after that one. That was a long one.
I know it's morning, so I'm like,
no, you're on fire, man.
Workout already.
You're on fire, man. I know people are probably hating me for interrupting you, but I want to add a little bit of clarity for the audience. So I think a great example is because, you know, everybody in this space, we love to make fun of girls with daddy issues, but mommy issues with men are a real thing. And a lot of guys who come from toxic households with moms arguing that with them, single moms treating the son as the de facto husband, you know, like grown men still like trying to make decisions in their life based upon their mother's approval. Like mom has become mommy / wifey. And that's, you know, that's a big part of what's wrong with America is right now that, and it's a silent epidemic. I think that's why the movie, have you seen The Joker?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think that's why The Joker was such a hit, man. You know, 20 million budget, but the story was on point and it was it grossed $1 billion. You take a 20 million to get to 1 fucking billion. That is like, because the message in itself, it was just such an anomaly in Hollywood. But I think it was a silent, you know, and it was a kind of a dark story. But at the end of the movie, he's like, he killed his mom. He's like, I'm free. Fuck you, mom. I'm going to kill you. And I'm going to go become this murderer. And he, before he was suffering, he wasn't getting women. He was miserable. Society laughed at him, treated him like shit. And it's, I think a lot of guys who are suffering with this kind of, like a lot of people who watch, like, let's be honest, guys who watch our content, not necessarily in the happiest place initially. And
that's why they came to us. They didn't come to us because they were doing awesome, usually. Right. And I sure as shit didn't get interested in a lot of these things because I was doing awesome either. You know what I mean? And so we usually all have limitations and things where we see a problem and we want to try to solve it. And then that brings us here. Yeah.
I think the uncoupling of the emotions and the toxic patterns is a lot to do with the mommy issues as well. Like it's how to solve the mommy issues. I think a lot of guys don't want to admit they have mommy issues, but they know they kind of do. And that's why they subconsciously seek out these toxic women and they create this never ending lifelong cycle of toxicity. And then some of them become jaded. They go black pill, they go make town, like all women are whores, they're all fucking bitches and you can never be happy, but they don't realize they're broken up here.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%, you know, and it's like that toxic dynamic with a caregiver is so important to recognize because it creates these attachment problems and these attachment issues, maladaptive attachment styles, you know, being, you know, anxious and, you know, clinging to women, having that one-itis, or being avoidant and not being able to have healthy relationships at all. And then, you know, taking that women ain't shit kind of attitude and not being able to actually have a good connection with another person that has vagina. Like, right. And these are, or having a disorganized style, which is, I think, is not recognized as much in the psychological community, but that's what I'm seeing a lot with a lot of men, is that they oscillate between attaching to someone and then pulling away or sabotaging things too. And it, even if you're even a daddy issue, right? Let's say dad's not around, right? Or you don't have a strong masculine figure. Well, Jesus, these guys have no idea what it's like to be a man. They don't have a good model for that. And in fact, they're growing up oftentimes being told through that societal feminized paradigm that masculinity is bad and being masculine is a problem. And so they're not taking ownership, for example. They're not taking that personal responsibility. They're taking that victim mindset. And a lot of these things are based on an inability to handle their emotions, an inability to handle the hardships of life. I mean, you need that dad around to tell you, hey, life sucks sometimes, but you're going to suck it up and you're going to do the best with what you got. And, kind of have that stoic sort of pick yourself up and be a man kind of thing in a loving, caring way. A lot of guys don't have that model. And moms, you could have the best mom in the world, single mom, whatever. We shit all over single moms all the time. But here's the thing. You could have the best mom in the world, but that mom is never going to be a good dad, and she's never going to make you as the son or the boy or the man of the house into a good husband. You know what I mean? That's not how it works. It's not how they're wired. Just like as a dad, I'm not a good mother. Okay. I need mother figures around to do that part and to do that job. I'm good at the dad part. I'm not going to be as a single dad. Thankfully, I have a good relationship with his biological, well, not biological mom, but his adopted mom. And, my LTR, even is a good mother figure for him, because I'm not a great mom,
Right.
but I'm a good dad as best as I can anyways. I can work on that part of it. And so when you're absent one of these figures, it can create problems. Avoidant attachment styles, for example, guys who grow up with single moms tend to develop these attachment styles, because what happens is they have to be emotionally strong now for mom, because mom doesn't have a man in her life that is stable, that she can, so
Makes me
mom doesn't.
uncomfortable because it's so true, and I've coached so many guys with it as well.
Yeah, mom doesn't have a stable male figure in her life, so now her identity gets wrapped up in her male children. And if that male child, let's say, tells the truth even about how he feels about certain things, he's going to be punished for it, or she's going to be emotionally erratic, and it's going to be all this stuff, and he's going to feel bad, like, you did bad in school today, or and she's a mess because had a bad day at school or whatever. She's not emotionally stable, and as a mother should be, like a mom should be, as a caregiver, strong with her children. You know what I mean? She can be an emotionally erratic mess as a woman to her husband or to her, to dad. All right. But to her children, she needs to be a strong figure. Well, she can't be a strong figure when she's by herself. She's not wired for it. Women in general, they're not wired for it. And so what happens is she shows up and she puts that all on that son, and that son now has to lie to her, has to conceal how he thinks and feels from her, has to show up and be a certain way, and disconnect from her, because she's oscillating from I love you to I hate you, you're a piece of crap every day, because she's not emotionally stable. Now
My mom did that.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And now you
Still
get this,
does.
right. And you have this emotional instability. And the only way of handling that is to pull away and disconnect.
Distance.
And now you have a disassociative style. Now you're clinging to a girl and irrationally, and then she comes around and you're like, fuck that girl, she's going to screw me over. And then you push her away. That's disorganized. You know what I mean? Now you can't be honest with your partner, even in times when it doesn't even make sense to be dishonest, just to conceal a part of yourself, just to make sure you're not exposed to this other person who could damage you emotionally, because now you have feelings for them. You know what I mean? Avoidance, where they pull away all together and, disassociate and, from their partners and conceal who they are and what they're thinking and all that stuff. Yeah, it comes across sometimes as real alpha at first, but then what ends up happening is it ends up destroying your partner because they can never really have a good connection with you. Or in some of the other, what we call simping, just, you know, prostrating themselves for these women and literally slitting their wrist practically for these women. I'll do anything for you. Don't leave me. You know what I mean? Because mom was leaving them, right? And so it's all of these different responses can be built when you with a toxic figure growing up. You know what I mean? And having a parent, even if she is does her best, she still has her own shit and she's still messed up and she's by herself. She's not going to be a good, there's going to be a problem oftentimes, just having a dad around, not having a mom figure can lead to these problems too, because now you have dads being dads. Dads aren't good moms. So back to that again. So it's a balance, that is usually achieved from a dual parent household. And we had that even in tribal times. We've instinctually grown up with male and female figures around that were, more or less healthy caretakers. And in order to have a secure attachment style, and I'll describe, we're using a bit of attachment theory here in this conversation. But secure attachment style is really being able to have a good emotional connection with somebody else with a level of outcome independence, meaning I'm independent from this person. And I know if this person rejects me or screws me over or whatever, I'm going to be okay. So
I think this guy on the, I don't know. I mean, his username is Facebook user, but it says, Facebook user, I think that and more, but to the point. Yeah. Attachment styles and mommy and daddy issues are a big factor on development of ourselves as childs and linger into adulthood if we don't address them properly. That is so true. I don't know who you are, Facebook user, but come on over to YouTube so I can see you in the chat and shout you out.
Give you a thumbs up for your comment. Yeah. But it's no, for real though.
True, right? I mean, is this not like fundamentally like so true?
Yeah, no, he's absolutely correct. And these things, attachment issues can even crop up later. It's not necessarily just built from childhood, though that's the normal theory. If you go through a traumatic experience, let's say that traumatic experience, I'll use the common theme for soldiers, on the multiple deployments I've done. So many guys are coming home to empty houses. They were married and wife is now with the neighbor or their friend or something. And they've cleaned the house out and they've taken the kids and now they've cleaned the bank accounts out. And so this guy comes over from a deployment having to now start with nothing and find where his kids and his used to be wife is and put his life back together. That is traumatic. There's nothing short. He could have had a great upbringing with his parents and wonderful family, right? And he comes home to that shit and it's traumatic. And now he then ends up with attachment problems later on. You know what I mean? These theories aren't always clean. People are individuals. And so there's different mixes of things that happen with people that causes these things. But it's really simple. What happened in that traumatic event is that he just had an emotional, attachment and connection to somebody and then received a grave loss from it. And so his brain is going to go, shit, don't ever do that again, bro. Yeah. And then there's distress. The distress feelings that he has going through well after the breakup, missing this person and then being angry and disgusted by her at the same time. That's all the brain just setting you up to not do that again. All right. That's all the brain using emotions in order to set you up so you don't fail again, because people generally aren't smart or self-aware, but they do respond to emotions. And that's why this is a survival response that our brain does. It keeps us alive. We're not smart enough usually to logically look at things and design our own lives. In our history, we haven't been. We are now, but in our history, we haven't been. So what works better? An emotional response. So what we want to do is recondition that emotional response. We want to, just like behaviors, and reconditioning a behavioral response. Emotions are a behavioral response because these are all neurons that connect to things. If
Yep.
my immediate response when I hear a loud noise in a certain environment is to grab my rifle and be ready. I'm not thinking about it. I've neurologically ingrained that into my head so many times. If there's a sense of danger, whoop, and my hand moves to where my weapon's at and I'm looking for the danger, that is an ingrained neurological response. I don't have to think about it. And I've trained that response. Sports psychologists train a response where, this happens, boom,
I was just gonna say that every time I hear a whistle guy wrestled in high school. To this day, when I hear a whistle blow, I want to
Yeah.
sprawl because they would be like, they blow the whistle and sprawl,
Yeah.
sprawl. But
Yeah.
it's true. And the thing is this: what we're talking about today, and just so you guys know at home, we're gonna do a live demonstration for you guys at home, because some people are on the fence about this stuff. So this is your free sample to do a live session at home. So if you're doing anything, if you're driving or you're working or something, you can't do it. But if you have free time and the ability to look at the screen and think of some kind of emotional trauma you have or some kind of uncomfortable situation, we're actually going to do a live free demonstration for you. And even if you're watching on the replay as well, you'll be able to do this. So prepare yourself. If you got to put the kids away or you got to go into another private room or something, but you can you can physically prepare for this now. Because I'll be honest with you. When Paul told me about the EMDR, I was like, at first I was like, okay, sounds bullshit, but I got to give it a go. And
that was my response too. Exactly the same thing.
I was like, sounds like shit. And but Paul's a nice guy. I'll give it a go. And I was undergoing at that time. I was under severe stress for something going on in my life, and this was last week. And I'm not joking. My stress level, in a matter of 5 minutes, my stress level dropped 80%. 80, and it was pretty high. I'm fine. Everything's fine. I was just, had some personal shit going on, and the crypto markets were tanking and some other shit was just fucking with me. It was just all like hitting me at once. I'm cooking up something that's stressing me up right now behind the scenes. But I did it with Paul, and I was just like, holy shit. And that's immediately, it's like, we have to put this on YouTube. Shout out to my brother Laurent with the 500 yen super chat. Says, solid show. Thank you. We marry our unfinished business. After forgiving my mother last year, even food tastes different. Yeah, it's so true. You can't hold on to this stuff. Facebook user came over. Kevin Daniel PG says, hi guys, I'm Facebook user. My name's Kevin. Thanks for the shout out. You're doing amazing work, guys. God bless you. Thank you. God bless you too, buddy.
That's awesome.
But yeah, let me ask you this, Paul. There's nothing but praise for you in the chat. Paul is a civilized giant. Paul is the real deal. Somebody else said you can tell
these comments.
Yeah, Paul.
Nice.
Paul also said, somebody else said, Paul. You can tell Paul has been through a lot of shit because he's just so down to earth. And like I said, I saw meeting Paul in Hot Dude Con Miami, talking with Paul behind the scenes, Rule Zero Dude Party, talking to him privately. We had a long 2-hour conversation, on 2 separate occasions these last couple of weeks, and I just said, you guys definitely have to pay attention to this man, because if you want to get your dating life sorted, which Paul has his shit sorted, if you want to get your finances sorted, you want to get your physical fitness sorted, okay? I mean, everything starts up here. Everything starts with the mind. And this content, the content that we're doing now, the Inner Game July, the psychological stuff, the trauma stuff, this is the future of red pill content. We're at like the cryptocurrency of red pill right now. We're at the forefront, and this is going to be the future, because America is a very emotionally traumatized nation, especially with women being financially incentivized to destroy families for money. And divorce wreaks havoc on everybody involved. The worst thing you can do, in my opinion, is to tear a family apart. And that's what's happening. That's the norm in America. So there's a lot of trauma going on, and this is I've seen it too, because like I said, over the past 2 years, with the Masculine Empowerment Network and Modern Life Dating, we've coached over 3,000 men. And a consistent pattern I notice is the guys will buy my courses, they'll book consultations, they'll sign up for my Patreon, but they can't seem to pull the trigger because they have a bad subconscious program going on up here. And that's what we're going to help you with today.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. And so onto that's interesting. You mentioned too about the techniques. Some of these conditioning techniques or combinations of things will seem like arbitrary or silly almost, right? Like they will. And it's kind of like, what? Like, really? That's what, like, for example, if I told you that to help a child have better emotional self-control, teach him how to juggle. That sounds so stupid, but it's not, because usually there's there's a disconnect between neurons between left and right hemispheres, which causes sometimes kids to get caught in these emotional patterns that they struggle to get out of. You have kids with these temper tantrums, they can't get control of themselves, right? Or they have uncontrollable like fears or crying or something like that, and they're trying to develop, and their brain is still developing. Well, to help that brain develop and help some neurons carry over, right, and help with neural connectivity while their brain has the most plasticity, teaching them how to juggle and stimulate the hemispheres will help their emotional development. Now, that sounds crazy. Will I teach my kid how to juggle? Like, what the hell? Teach him how to paint left-handed? Like, why is this? You know what I mean? Like, but these are these things that seem silly, but then when you look at what the brain is doing
Yep.
and how the neurons are responding to this stuff, you're going, oh, that makes sense. EMDR is one of those things. I was like, yeah, go ahead.
When I was in university, I got my bachelor's in science and psychology, and one of the professors I had at the University of Central Florida, he at the first day of class, he's like, "I just want to let you guys know we're going to talk about brain chemistry and rerouting everything." And he says, by the end of the year or by the end of the semester, he's like, "I challenge you guys to learn how to juggle, because I want you to rewire your brain and witness the process." And he's like, everybody who learns how to juggle will get extra credit. And I fucking taught myself how to juggle. I can juggle. I'm not phenomenal, but I can juggle. Right. I can juggle 3 balls. Right. And it's crazy to witness the learning process as long as you just focus yourself to go through it. So that's phenomenal that you just brought that up as well.
Yeah. And so let's look at like what that process is, because we want to look at that as to how we recondition thoughts and behavior and belief patterns, right? And so there's this myth that the brain changes with every experience. That's not actually true from what they're finding. But what is true is that intentionality will cause where you put your intentions and your focus is what will cause an experience to change your brain or change those neural connections and learn or unlearn behavior. And so that's an important component of this. And I'm mentioning that for EMDR as well, because with EMDR, you want to be able to have intention with the activity that you're doing. And so what happens is, let's say that toxic breakup, right? Or whatever, the guys are just getting over it. They're ruminating, they're thinking about it. This is what normally happens. So I'm going to give it time. I'm just sort of, and they're figuring it out. They're trying to figure out the logical format of it. The brain says, you know what, if we figure out the truth and understand it, then we can avoid danger in the future. So in seeking understanding, we start seeking information out. This is not a bad response initially, but what happens is it leads to confirmation bias to distressing emotions. So when you're coming from a place of distressed emotions, right, or we'll just call it anxiety for lack of a better term, because I don't mean clinical anxiety, but just distress, right. All right, your brain is not looking for truth in an objective manner. Your brain is looking to have confirm and look for those reasons to confirm the distress. Oh, see, this is why I'm distressed, that thing, that sign, this thing she did there, this thing that happened there. And so it's ruminating and doing this. And that's actually addictive, because thinking and going after the distress and trying to understand the distress and circling and spinning around in circles and circles and circles and circles, doing that day, night, I can't sleep, I'm still thinking about her. This is addictive now. You're now hammering in neurochemicals that are rewarding thinking about and ruminating over distress. And so this is what happens with this generalized anxiety people get into, why they don't get over breakups like they should, and why they carry the baggage into next relationships, because they're just doing this, and it's self-rewarding, it's self-perpetuating. And so what we have to actually do is stop that pattern, and recondition a new pattern so that we're not coming at it from a point of distress. If I'm seeking out information from a distressed place, I'm going to, anything I find is going to then support the confirmation bias I have for the danger that I'm seeking. So if I'm worried about my girl cheating on me, I start going through her phone, start looking at what she's doing. Now she had a conversation with her girlfriend and she referenced me in a way that was very casual. I look at that as, oh, she's looking at me like, you know what I mean? I'm not her sexual best. She wouldn't refer to me like that. Like she probably referred to her ex who she wanted better than me. And then I start looking and, oh, this guy sought her out, or, she had a brief conversation with some guy from work. Now, oh, she's probably wanting to screw that guy. You see what I mean? Like you just start you start looking for these reasons to protect yourself because that's the defense mechanism. Distress says, let me magnify all this information so I can see any potential distress, because then I can avoid a problem or I can take action to avoid it. Yeah, this is great for survival. It's better to be way overly cautious in a survival situation, right? But that's not going to let you complete the mission. Okay. Completing that mission would be having happiness and having a healthy relationship, Sure. So you could respond to distress and destroy all your relationships. Then you'll never be hurt by a woman again. Okay. But then you're, guess what? Not going to be in a good, healthy relationship with anybody either. And so these are the ways that our brain wiring that is designed to help us survive can now work against us when we want to get better things in life. We want to achieve better things. And so we have to unlearn that distress and see things from a neutral perspective. And that's what the essence of being alpha is. It's not just being distressed and responding to emotions. It's having emotional self-control. And having emotional self-control is being able to go, okay, this thing hurt me before, but I'm okay. And in fact, I'm better from it because I went through that experience. So I'm going to not see these things as distressing and see these things for the reality that they are, and then if girlfriend that you're seeing is bad LTR material and potentially seeing another guy on the side, you'll know it because you're objective. You know what I mean? You're not doing excessively positive thinking like the self-help positive thinking movement tells you to do, and then getting yourself into more trouble because you're naive. You know what I mean? We see that with blue pill paradigm. It's just excessively positively thinking themselves into a prison where they don't fulfill their own goals and dreams, and they're fulfilling the goals and dreams of everybody else, their boss, their woman, even their kids. Not that raising kids is bad or anything. And not that facilitating dreams for people you work with or even your girl is bad, but not at the expense of yourself, right? And creating a prison for yourself. Excessively positive thinking is a way to naively not face the distress that you would have if you were to face those things. It's that cognitive dissonance, right? Or excessively negative thinking. Now I'm an incel, right? Or now I'm on some really extreme incel kind of channels, we'll call it, because I don't want to say black pill, because some of those guys, all right, I get it. Some of them, Troy talked to that one dude. He seemed all right. I don't know what his philosophy is, nor do I agree with him, but whatever. Guys give themselves terms. Like, I don't want to shit all over MGTOW and then have MGTOW people be mad at me when there's some of them. It's fine. It's just the way they define it. I don't care how you define yourselves. I don't care what pill you're taking. All right. I don't care what it is. I just want you, to get what you want and to decide what you want, not based on distress and danger, but based on what it is that actually makes you tick, what it is you want, what it is you're looking for. That's what and you get what you want that way. So imagine for a minute, if you could take any bad thing that's ever happened to you, no matter how fucking bad, bad childhood, bad breakups, abuse, PTSD, death, injury, all kinds of stuff. Take any bad thing that's ever happened to you and remove all the bad effects. What would you have left? Only good outcomes, because you would have the learning experience. You would still have the logical understanding of what happened. You still understand that that's bad and you're not going to want to go back to that. You know what I mean? And so you're not going to just repeat bad behavior because you don't have the same emotional connotation to it. And so what happens? What happens is you can only use the bad things that have happened to you to better yourself and to become better for it and to experience better things. And so this
is a good question. What would you answer this to David? He says, so we as men need emotional discipline rather than emotional intelligence. I would say you need both.
Yeah, you need both. You need to understand the understanding part is really important. That's not to be discounted. I give that stuff away for free on my channel. I give the logic and reasoning away for free. When I do a video, some guy has a problem, and then I dissect the sexual marketplace as best as I can, throw in some stuff that I've learned when Rollo writes a book, when Rich writes his book or has his community, John, you have your empowerment network. We're giving you the information on the channels that we have. We're giving it to you for free a lot of times. If you want to do more with that information and better yourself with that information, that's where the paywall comes in. Of course, we gotta have you invested in your own success. But the information, to me, is the easy part. I can give you the information. Now, diagnosing it with yourself, though, that's the hard part, because we block ourselves from understanding ourselves. There's so many times, dude, I have all this understanding and shit. My self-awareness on something is way off. And I'm like, holy crap, I just learned something about myself. I'm dumb. I've known this for a decade, what this thing is. And here I am doing this thing. Didn't even see it. We have blinders for ourselves, which is why it's really important never to be too arrogant as you get more information. You better your understanding, and you think you're good because you're better at understanding something than everyone else. Well, guess what? You still have your own emotional and mental connotations to things, and your own unconscious and things you can't see that a third party can see. Me as a consultant, therapist, coach, that's what I see with people. EMDR, I'm that third party person that says, hey, here's something you might not be seeing. And they go, of course, I've watched this in several videos. John talked about this, last month. And I didn't even see this in myself. Yeah. And so we do have those blinders or those barriers. And that's where we want to be humble, and we want to get that emotional intelligence and understanding. But once you have the understanding, what are you going to do with it? Yeah. That's where discipline comes in. And discipline isn't just forcing yourself to feel different. You know what I mean? I'm sad, but I'm not going to let myself feel sad. That's not how it works. What it is going, all right. Yeah. Yeah.
It kills you. Literally.
It does. What it is going, man, I feel like crap. I feel sad about this. Let me look for an answer so I can solve this problem, instead of blaming someone else or playing the victim or just sucking it up and hoping something changes, And so let's see what this one. So is.
I'm just giving him a thumbs up. No, you're good.
Yeah.
I love Sam. Yeah. He's a great guy.
Right on. But yeah, so yeah, you want to. It's discipline is having the humility to seek out answers and methods that you don't necessarily have, and then start taking action and executing those things. It's not sitting here, and being stuck in what you think it is, and then not getting results, and then being stubborn about those things. That's not demonstrating discipline. It's demonstrating stubbornness. You know what I mean? Blaming other people for things, or saying, well, this is because I'm a piece of crap to my girlfriend because my mom was a piece of crap to me, but then doing nothing about it. That's not actually helping you. And that's not demonstrating discipline. That's demonstrating, being a victim, right? Which you don't want to be a victim. And so, yeah.
That's the worst thing you can be as a man, because nobody cares at all
Right.
when you're a
No,
victim. Like
no, they
the
don't.
society, they're just like, no, do better. That's all they
Yep.
care about, is just
Yep.
saying do better.
Oh yeah.
So let me ask you, this is more of a selfish question, but when I talk to you, I just feel so stupid. And I'm like, I feel like I'm just a fucking guy who wears sunglasses and yells on his channel. Uh, where if someone were to want to be more like you and learn all this stuff, could you, this is just a selfish question for me, and I could ask you off air, but I think a lot of people would benefit from this as well. Where did you learn all this? Where did you get all this knowledge? Where did you get all
Yeah.
this information from?
So this is the part where I'm a spurg. Okay. I'm like really autistic, as we joke around in the space and use that as a slang, with some of these things. So like I started off with conventional psychology, and I went to school for that too, right? And then you gets knocked out some grad school, and then got transferred to the School of Hard Knocks, which is the deployment, and so didn't get a doctorate in psychology. But I mean, I pursued that knowledge and everything, and I would be interested in a topic, and I would just go for it. I go for it from an academic perspective versus the filter of a mouthpiece. So although it's fun to listen to some of the YouTube videos and stuff, and it's okay, that's helpful. I want to go to primary sources. I want to go to, okay, psychologists in the field. For example, I'm going to read stuff from John Gottman, who's kind of noted for the founder of family therapy. Now, there's a lot of thing about his theories and from the Gottman Institute that I don't agree with. They don't fit. They fit a blue pill paradigm. And when you have that lens, you'll see that stuff. But,
Blue pill plus therapy doesn't work.
No, it doesn't. Now, there are some things though that are useful with a red pill paradigm you could use. That's just one example. But then I got really interested in how to change the brain, how to do so rapidly. And so that's when I looked into neurology, and I look at papers and books and different things. Some of the altered states is one that talks about meditation and research behind it, and I just pick up these things and I would read them. I used to read like a book a week, and it's just like, I would just and this has been now 2 decades. And so evolutionary psych, getting into that stuff to understand our instinctual drives. I did that before, I came across Rollo's material. What I really liked about Rollo's material was he made some really dry evolutionary psych stuff applicable and into a proxology for the sexual marketplace. So I'm like, oh yeah, that's really cool. Like I see what he's doing here and how he explains it. And I think he does an excellent job of explaining things, although it can be a little in depth for some people. They have a hard time maybe digesting it. They need a little bit more simple, right? And it's hard to, this is just something I've been on a quest and really passionate, but isn't even the right word, but just really like methodical about it. Like I think of a problem like pair bonding. Okay. I go, what's the neurology behind it? What neurochemicals are happening with pair bonding? And so then I start going down and looking up research papers on pair bonding, and then pair bonding in the animal kingdom, and pair bonding in primates, and how are they differing from a bonobo society where you have a more of a matriarchal female-driven society versus a patriarchal one, and how those societies would alter or change pair bonding. And what are the chemicals involved? Well, we look at voles, which are considered a monogamous species, to put quotes, because interestingly enough, there's cheating and breakups and stuff in vole communities, you know what I mean? Even though they're much lower, mammals and animals. But we can look at they do studies and they look at those things to try to understand human pair bonding, because we can ethically do things with voles that we can't do with humans to try to tap into their neurochemistry, right? And so you have papers on that stuff, you know what I mean? Papers on learning and rapid learning and neurology. I actually look up primary sources papers. I'll read the abstract, then I'll look at the test sample and see, okay, is the research viable based on test samples and what they're doing? And then from there, I'll go in backwards and read the entire thing if it seems like it's a good, it's a good choice or viable choice. And then I just start piecing things together in my head. This is why it's like I'm just coming from an angle, you know, that isn't like the same as me digesting somebody else's shit or whatever.
So
Like
your degree,
yeah.
the degrees that you hold are, what are they?
Yeah, so I just have I just have an undergrad in general, English, political science, but then I did cross studied in psychology to get into psychology grad school, and then I was moving towards a doctorate in psychology, skipping the master's, going right towards a doctorate, left the program, so don't have a doctorate in psychology.
How
Now
long
I
were you in
have
the program?
it was a year and a half,
Okay.
but it wasn't like leaving just to, what I found too was the program was me having to sort of dumb myself down into the paradigm that they were presenting so that we could get the degree. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now, there's a place where you get into doing your own research later, which would have been cool. I didn't get to that place yet. There's the statistics and understanding. I took, understanding grad level statistics and how they're looking.
It's hilarious.
So, but yeah, so there's the
Oxwolf, thanks for the $10 donation. By the way, if you guys want to send a donation, link is pinned in the chat.
but yeah, so understanding stats and test samples and how that works, because not every study is equal. Those are some things I benefited from in grad school, but really it was the performance side that got me interested more than the study. So that was started off infantry, specialized infantry, something called LURS, Special Forces Group. I had an exchange with the head of neurology over at Harvard when we were just over email and stuff at the time, the head of the department, because we're trying to train and make better operators. They had performance psychologists hired, and they would meet with us to test us for different things. And we were looking at better ways of implementing training and having, transforming this piece to perform better in the field, and then also recover better at home to then get out and be a better operator. And that piece has always been over in that community, as far as a training tool, just like physical training has been with their like Thor 3 programs, stuff like that. But that's the angle and sort of what I gravitated towards. Then I got certifications in NLP. I became a certified EMDR therapist. That's a certification program versus a university degree. I became a master certified hypnotherapist. And, I've taken like courses on dialectical behavioral therapy and some of these different things. I thought about going back to grad school, but my problem is I don't agree with the APA and on a lot of things. And I don't agree with the conventional paradigm that the social work, counseling, and psychology industry has. They're great when it comes to certain things about research. There's certain things they could, improve on, but they're good. Like I use their research, a psychologist.
The nerds are good at fucking doing the data crunching.
Right. And the clinical psychologists that do research, it's something that it's critical for me to help somebody else, because I need to know the data for what's going on. But it's like having a coach out in the field versus a sports scientist. You know what I mean? The coach is looking for the results. The player needs the results. If this guy says, hey, I'm going to, wear these lucky socks and that's going to make me win games, fucking wear the lucky socks. You know what I mean? Like I'm looking for results down to the end user individual. And then I want to get those results as efficiently as possible. I actually learned about this from a firearms trainer. In fact, I'm going to be in his book forward. His new book is coming out. The guy is like an icon in the firearms world, especially in the law enforcement circles, but he's not well known because he doesn't market himself like that. You know what I mean? He's living off 2 pensions and he's pretty quiet about what he does, but he revolutionized the firearms training industry because he asked the question, these skills we're learning with guns on the range, we need to learn these skills in the conditions in which we're going to use them, which is the gunfight, and then backwards engineer plan from there. So I approach mental health that way. We're going to have mental health and fitness and emotional self-control, mental self-control, behavioral, responses in the situations that we need them, with our girlfriends, at the business meeting, making a decision how I'm going to run my day today, so I'm productive, all those things. And then from there, I'm going, okay, what results do we need to get? And how do I get there both quickly as well as efficiently? You know what I mean? And so now I'm not married to any particular model. If I went to school and got a primary model of therapy from cognitive and behavioral and talk therapy, for example, or if I did psychoanalysis and was more of a Carl Jung guy, I would be using that modality, to try to solve everybody's problems, whether it's efficient or not. We see this in hypnotherapy too. And I'm not slamming on hypnotherapists because we know a bunch of hypnotherapists that do awesome work. But, hypnotherapy is one tool. It's not always the tool to solve every problem. And if I approach it where that's the hammer, everything looks like a nail because I'm certified in this thing, well, I'm doing now my clients a bit of a disservice, or I could be overpromising, oh yeah, we'll get rid of this problem. And really, I make them feel good for 2 or 3 days, but then the problem still exists because there were other things we needed to do to recondition the mind and the behaviors, or maybe a logical paradigm that's missing. If you're not aware, meaning the logical paradigm isn't in place, you're going to fall back to old patterns and behaviors because that was a limiting belief and thought pattern that led to those things, right? But if you know what this is and you understand, on an unconscious level what things need to be like, and even get rid of the trauma, but then you have a pattern that you don't recondition, you'll fall back to old patterns. Like, here's an example. You could have been an angry person due to past traumas. We get rid of the trauma. Okay, cool. But now you're still punching your steering wheel in traffic, right? You're doing that because that's a conditioned, ingrained response that your neurons are connected to. And that has served you in some way, shape, or form, even though it hasn't been good through most of your life or whatever. And so we need to recondition that. And reconditioning that starts with awareness and challenging it, and then doing things to uncouple that neural connection to that response, and then relearn a new response. And EMDR is something to help uncouple the old response.
Let's talk about that. So we're going to talk
Yes.
about EMDR. We're going to do a live session here for you guys at home. Why don't you, let's do this. Let's explain what EMDR is, and then let's go through the preparation steps that you believe we can do for the guys at home that want to participate in this.
Yeah. Let me, this is going to, bad timing for this, but let me fix something here.
Okay, take your time. And while he's fixing that, guys, don't forget we're doing the Inner Game July challenge. So, we're in the tail end of it right now, but we'll share this for you. Take a look here. This is the Inner Game July challenge. I hope you can join us. So what we're doing is Inner Game July grind, and we're coming up to a close here. But you can see here on the screen, these are the 7 rules for the Inner Game July grind. And number 1 is no eating out unless it's for business. Okay. Number 2, gym 3 times a week minimum. I have been maxing out on this. I've been going to the gym literally 5 to 6 times a week, sometimes 7 days a week. The most important thing is just getting into the gym. Look, guys, when I say I go to the gym, 6 days a week, 7 days a week, some of these days, I just wake up first thing in the morning. I put on my gym clothes. I take a little bit of a, fat burner or ephedra or whatever. Or sometimes I'll just drink some celery juice or take pre-workout, right? Make sure I go there with nothing in my stomach. And all I do is I put the treadmill on full incline, and then I put it on 2.5 to 3.0 speed, and I just walk for 30 minutes. And then maybe if I'm feeling pumped up after that, I'll go do some pull-ups, maybe do, a little douchebag episode at workouts, just some quick chest, or sometimes I'll just go home. But it's all about you can never. There's no such thing as a bad day in the gym, in my opinion, right? Even if you're just getting in a quick 20 minutes, it's a good habit to be building. So the point of the gym 3 times a week, I'm not telling you need to go balls to the wall, okay? I'm not telling you need to fucking go in there and pull 600 pounds like Paul was saying, okay? But you do need to make the habit of just getting into the gym. Number 3, finish 4 books. I'm on the tail end of winning, so I'll have 2 of my 4 finished. I got a lot of work going on, but we'll see if I can crank out these 4 books. If I really, really put the pedal to the metal between tomorrow and Saturday, I think I could finish the 4 books. Number 4, 1 self-improvement activity daily. For me, it was drinking a really good protein shake today, as well as doing some studying and watching my affirmation video. Number 5, track your weight. I'm down about 4.5 pounds from the beginning of July until now. 6, affirmations. Telling yourself positive things in the present tense. I am strong. I am mentally stable. I am rich. I am an alpha male. I am a master seducer. Present tense, what you want right now. Writing it down is even better. I see some of you guys writing down multiple affirmations. I believe in writing down one until you get it done and then move on to the next one. So you concentrate all your willpower on the outcome desired for one result. Number 7, no negative people. That should just be a life rule, honestly, but I'm just telling you guys to get a sample of it. No negative people, man. Negative people will ruin your life. If you are near negative people, they will pull you down. There's no negotiation. If somebody is negative in your life, they will pull you down. The only solution is to remove them from your life. I know it sounds cold. I know it sounds heartless, but hey, it's fuck or walk, baby. It's are you trying to win? Are you trying to get this shit sorted? Or are you trying to fucking, be Mother Teresa and feel sorry for the masses? Okay. You got to protect yourself and lift yourself up to bring those around you up. And if those around you don't want to lift you up, you have to remove them from your immediate contact circle. So that's the Inner Game July grind. Do this and then tag me on Instagram so I can showcase your success. Follow me at Hot Dude Life. Do a story, tag me on the story, and I'll put you on my story, and over 13,000 of my followers will see you.
Nice.
Anyways, so we're
Good
back.
Stuff.
We're
Good
back.
Stuff. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I'll plug in my mic again in like 10 minutes. It's stupid. It's a technology thing that I'm retarded with, so whatever.
It's okay. Is it charging?
We're good. Yeah, I had to charge. Yeah, I have to charge it for like another 10. I left it when I had it plugged in last night. I left it my shit unplugged, and so now I'm like having to charge it up again, but it'll be fine. I'll be using the port for my mic again. I got this. As long as you guys can hear me, we're good to go. I had a backup plan. Yeah, so we can get into a little bit of the EMDR stuff. And here's the thing, like back to like, so I noticed a question in the chat while you're talking, like, where do I find more of this information? Well, you're finding it here. Keep tuning into John's channel. All right. First of all, things like the Masculine Empowerment Network. You got people like myself and, Ryan and all the people that have been talking, this whole month are in that network generally doing breakout sessions and sessions. So that's one way to access information. My channel, I talk about this stuff usually on a Monday, but it depends. I'm talking a lot about the sexual marketplace, but we talk about these things as well. And I'll work on getting a better reading list for you guys because I don't have one just off of my fingertips. Because a lot of what I read, like I mentioned, are studies and just things I've sort of put together. Now, I'm looking at taking these techniques and things that are out there and they're research based. And then I'm looking at applying them in a combination of strategies with each individual client and sessions. So the reason I'm kind of gotten good at this is because I get somebody and I'm listening to what problem they're trying to solve and what goals they're getting to. And then I start dissecting what is going to be the most rapid way for them to have solutions. And it's never one answer. Sometimes it's a logical, there's some logical paradigm stuff and an understanding they need, right, of a situation. There's a little bit of a cognitive behavioral element to that. But then there's a mixture of tracking behavior, challenging behavior, doing different exercises to challenge the perceptions that you have when something happens to you, for example, and going back and doing a challenge exercise on thoughts and beliefs and behavior patterns. Visualization exercises to recondition new patterns, so visualizing being in a circumstance and then doing the new pattern, using hypnotherapy to have a deeper visualization of an event that you're trying to change a response to. For example, trauma is the EMDR part of it, where we're trying to uncouple neurological connections to negative or distressing emotions. But then a bunch of tricks that you would do in things to maximize that, how to maximize your sleep, how to do daily practices, like some of the things you mentioned, like the affirmations and, a little bit of meditation and some of these things. And even, taking care of your body and some of those things is actually important because your mind and your emotional state are
they're neurochemicals and they're chemicals in your body that are affected by your exercise, affected by your physical health. And so it all fits into like a big picture. What I'm doing, like my firearms trainer I mentioned, is saying he takes, a group of guys, he's only got them for 4 hours. He goes, how can I train these guys to win gunfights in the 4 hours that I have them, using a set of fundamentals and skill sets that are designed for them to have the most amount of results for the amount of training they're doing, number one, and number two, that will work in the conditions in which they'll need those skills. And so I'm doing the same sort of thing, and I have the same way of thinking when I approach mental health, mental conditioning, and getting your goals met, and whether it's overcoming something or overcoming a problem, or whether it's achieving something. It's me going over what is the set of practices or tools that will get you there the quickest. And so as an EMDR, therapist, a lot of EMDR therapists want you to keep going to therapy. Well, my goal is to work myself out of a job with you. All right. In other words, I want you to be self-sufficient. Yes. So EMDR that we'll do right now, this is actually controversial that we're doing this. A lot of EMDR therapists would go, you can't do this like this. You have to be in front of a therapist. You can't just show this technique, or you can't self-direct the EMDR type of therapy. Well, I disagree, right? Just like that'd be like saying you can't go work out unless you have a personal trainer. All right. Now, you could be hitting the gym and doing your diet program and you could suck. And in a year, you could look exactly the same and you need to hire a dietitian or a diet person. You need to hire a trainer because you're not doing it right. Right? That could happen. This is the same thing with EMDR. Actually, though, harder though, because there are things, remember I said there are blinders we have when we look at ourselves. So when we do a therapy modality ourselves, we might not be able to see everything that we need to see. And that's what a professional is there for. But that doesn't mean, though, we can't learn the technique and utilize it on your own in order to self-improve or handle, some of these traumas and start dealing with these things on your own. At least get the process started, And then, of course, if you get stuck or have issues, that's when you book a session and you go in front of either an EMDR therapist or someone like myself. And again, I use the modality not the same as all other therapists do because I'm looking for results. I'm not looking for you to come in and see me a couple times a week and ruminate over your problems. You know what I mean? I want you to get to a better state and get to the place that you want to be faster. And so that might mean that along with the EMDR, I'm giving you homework that has you tracking the distress feelings and tracking 1 to 10, becoming consciously aware of those things and taking breaks throughout the day to handle those things. For example, a compartmentalization technique so you don't ruminate and spin out of control. And you said take those shitty emotions and you project it into productivity, right? So now when you have distress, you go boom into productivity and you like 10x yourself that day because you felt like crap. Way better way of handling, than spinning around over distress. So there's things that I'm doing with somebody that's going to be a lot different. And EMDR will work in conjunction with that. But that being said, we can do this here. We can demonstrate it. We can do it. And as long as these guys in the audience here, they have the disclaimers, they understand a few things about it, I think it's perfectly safe and fine. It could be a tool for you to use, just like meditation. I wouldn't say you need a guru in order to meditate, right? You might not get the same results though as you would if you had someone coaching you through meditation,
right,
or showing up in a class. But you can still do some of these things on your own. And so yeah, that's why we're gonna do it today. Which is, by the way, dude, like this is totally nobody does this. What we're gonna do. This is this is crazy unique, man. Actually, so this is something that isn't being done out there. People think it's risky. So I don't think it's risky though. I think we'll be fine.
Yeah, we're gonna be fine. But like I said, what we're gonna do, we're gonna take a look. So, you want to explain what you're gonna do now for the audience?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So what we're going to do is first let me throw out the risks and the disclaimers first. Okay.
Yeah.
Don't
sue us. This is not gonna work.
Yeah. So the risks are the disclaimer. The disclaimer is this. Okay. If you have really serious traumatic memories that would cause you to be a danger to yourself, danger to other people if you're to bring those things up, or serious distress that would cause you multiple days of distress to bring those things up, do that in a session with somebody. Don't do that by yourself, okay? Because there's going to be thoughts, feelings, emotions that will crop up, and you may not have the tools in order to handle that in a healthy way. All right. So that's the first part of the disclaimer. Use your judgment. If you've been through, for example, like sexual abuse when you're a kid, don't be thinking about your sexual abuse experience on the internet with a guy, okay, and no support or help at home with this. You want to be in front of a therapist. If you went through wartime trauma and had watched your best friend get killed, right, and some of these, and they use this a lot for PTSD, by the way. That's where a lot of the clinical trials are at, and how I came across it. Yeah, don't do this on your own, where you're going to have distress thoughts and feelings of anger and wanting to punch holes in your wall and stuff, you know what I mean, while you're trying to process this. You need to be in front of somebody that can recognize the distress you're having and direct you into techniques to bring that distress down, and you're going to need another person for that. So that is the big disclaimer right there. Use judgment and use this at your own risk. But for things like breakups, for things like my mom wasn't present, or absent, or some of these things, or recent things that you're just distressed about, I'm worried about losing my job tomorrow, stuff like that. These aren't things that are going to make you spin out of control necessarily, and these are probably things you can do this activity on your own with. All right. So you got to just be aware if you start to feel really bad or really distressed, like you can't handle it, then just stop. That's simple. You don't need to keep going. It's like, like when you're working out, if it hurts in a bad way, don't do it. Right. Same thing with this. All right. And so there are other things too. Is there some reasons why this might not be effective from where you're sitting? And this is why getting in front of somebody is important as well, because you could have had early stress that has shaped your nervous system that has made the reaction just unstable for you. So now your neurons and nervous system isn't responding the way that we want. And so we're going to have to do some other things now to try to work around that or get around that. And so, for example, maybe we don't focus on this particular set of traumas, but we focus on something different. And then we work into that trauma. There's one technique, there's compartmentalization, where you might not be able to access the memory like you want to, or the, emotions or feelings that you have to those memories. And so you just sort of feel dead while you're doing it. Nothing's happening, but this is something stressful for you. These are things that getting in front of somebody can solve. So by yourself, if it doesn't work, it's not because stimulating the brain doesn't work. It's because your brain and their neural connections are doing something to prevent this from having the effect we want. And that's why in a session we would do some things that are different. But for most of you, though, it'll work actually pretty well and be really powerful. And it's so simple that you're going to be like, I can't believe I just got this for free on YouTube. All right. Yeah. And so that's the cool thing about most of it. And what we're going to do is this. We're going to bring up, and you guys are going to do this at home. Are we going to do it together, or are we going to do this just for everybody at home? How do you want to do it? We can do it.
Let's do it for everybody at home.
All right, fair. I'll say, so we're going to do this for you guys at home. Okay. And you guys can just comment in the chat. All right. Like, what is going on with you? After.
Do you want to, before we go, do you want to switch mics? Has that been charging for 10 minutes? You think?
I can switch mics. Yeah.
Yeah. Just because just so it could be a little bit more clear for everybody.
Yep. Let me see if my charger is good. Yeah, that's plenty. That's good. So
cool. So I'll just, while Paul gets that set up, guys, what we're going to be doing is he's setting up his audio equipment right now. Basically, you're going to be looking at the screen, and you're going to be tracking some eye movements. You're going to be following his fingers, and he's going to be talking you through this session right now. So what you need to do is think about a situation that makes you uncomfortable, whether it may be a lingering breakup, or you got fired from a promotion, or a friend of yours. Oh, perfect. Or somebody was mean to you, or perhaps your parents were scolding when you're little. Nothing hyper traumatic, because like he said with the disclaimer, you don't want to really bring up something nasty that will be, detrimental to you. But something I would say medium to mild trauma is okay. Paul, I'm just going to give you the full screen and let you take it from here because you're the expert.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, brother. Okay, guys, so here's what's going to happen briefly, and then we're going to do it, and then we'll stop and interpret things afterwards. You guys can participate in the chat and tell us what's going on with you. Maybe something dramatic happens, maybe nothing dramatic happens at all. It's okay. We're just here to learn from it, right? And so what we're going to do is we're going to stimulate both hemispheres of the brain visually. They found that for some reason, and reasons that there are theories on, but they're not 100%, sure why. They know it works, but they're still figuring out the reasons why we evolved this way. But for some reasons, by stimulating the peripherals of your vision, we stimulate both hemispheres of the brain, and that causes us to change our neuroconnectivity or earmark neurons for change when we go to sleep during REM sleep. So make sure both will happen. Now, what we do is then we bring up distressing thoughts and we see them as pictures, and we go through events that have caused distress. I'm going to cough for a second, excuse me. All right, so we're going to go through events that you're going to do with us, whatever it is that have been causing you distress, bad feelings, anxiety, maybe anger, maybe sadness, any multitude of emotions that have been distressing for you. And so you're going to think about the events that have caused that distress, and you're going to do it under this bilateral stimulation, which I'll explain how we're doing that in a second. And by thinking through this in a safe environment, which is in the comfort of your own home in a chair, watching a screen, nothing bad is actually going to happen physically or mentally to you while we're going through these distressed events. So your brain goes, okay, here's a bunch of distress signals we have coupled to these things, these events, but nothing bad is actually happening right now. And so, and as I focus on it, I can see that we're not in any danger. So then the brain automatically starts to reorganize that neural connection and bring that distress down, because now there's no usefulness in having this signal the distress that it's having. By allowing yourself to feel the emotions and experience them, but in a safe environment where nothing's actually happening that's bad to you and there's no bad consequence that's happening, your brain is automatically wired to solve a problem. Your brain is the ultimate problem solver, and whether you are conscious of it or not, when your brain sees something that needs to be fixed or something that's off, your brain starts working to fix that problem. This is why something as simple as just tracking, like tracking your workouts or something, or tracking your food, can cause you to start changing and altering behaviors. Just simply writing things down, because your brain will notice problems, and once it notices a problem, it'll start fixing it. That's what we're doing with traumatic events. Your brain's going to notice, okay, the distress we're having attached to this event is kind of problematic because there really isn't a danger at the moment, and I'm not seeing this danger right now. And in fact, we're processing through this stuff, and there's nothing wrong. So I think we can move this traumatic event over to the acceptance part of our brain, put new neural connections to that event where we accept what happened for whatever it is. And now you are placed, after doing this, in a neutral mindset where you can see it now without the emotional connotation and the distress. And then that allows you to derive new meaning from the trauma or the event, because now the meaning that you had before is no longer, it's not clouded by these distressed emotions, right? So now you have clarity. And so now with new meaning and less distress, it supports you to move forward without having distress signals on this traumatic event, which means all of the baggage that you would take with you into future experiences and relationships is now absent. Okay. And so now you're not going to respond in a distressed way, all right, to future events based off this particular trauma or event. And now we do this at a scale, all right, but we're going to, when we work through things, we're doing it for multiple events that are connected together and having a connotation for you. but you're just going to see the effects for a single event here when we do the exercise. Now, the bilateral stimulation is pretty simple. I'm going to make sure I'm right where my camera needs to be. All I'm going to do is move my finger back and forth, just like this. This is all I'm going to do. And what I want you to do is place yourself in front of your phone or your computer screen or whatever you're using, where you're close enough to where you can follow this finger, all right, without having to move your head back and forth. So it should cause your eyeballs to have to move back and forth. All right. If my eyeballs did it, I hope it did. So your eyeballs are moving back and forth, head stays stationary. Now, I'm going to do this for a few minutes, and all you're going to do is you're going to bring up or think about the distressing event or traumatic event that you want to think about. I want you to see it like it's a movie, kind of like you're in the movie though too, and you're sort of able to on the sidelines experience it. The way the air smelled, the way things felt, the sounds, anything that's real to you in that moment, allow yourself to experience it. All right. And now some emotions will happen for you. And those emotions might be really distressing. And that's okay. Just allow those distressed emotions to happen. You're in a safe place. You can cry over your computer screen. Nobody cares. Doesn't make you less of a man. You can get angry. You can get fearful. You can get upset. Whatever happens, right? You're a safe place now. You can do that here. All right. So you allow yourself to feel the feelings and emotions that crop up. And you'll be surprised how under bilateral stimulation, it draws those things out rather quickly sometimes. All right. And then you just hold that in your head and allow yourself to experience it. You don't have to think of anything else. Just focus on the event and then see what happens with those emotions and see if something changes. Then after I'm done moving my finger back and forth like a crazy person, we'll interpret what happened afterwards, and we'll go through an exercise that makes you aware of it. And then there it is. And now you have this as a tool for the rest of your life to handle distress and things that you are uncertain about in the future. So we'll get started, and I'm just going to get ready and go ahead and just relax and focus on my finger and go ahead and think about that event, and I'll stop in a few minutes. All right. That's a good place to stop. Now, we'll do the after effects now, okay? So you guys have kind of stopped, reset yourself. And so now I want you to think about, and you can write something down if you would like, all right? Can be helpful. Usually I'll write it for the person when we're doing it. But think about the event, okay? What it is that you saw, you visualized. And then ask yourself, did you stick to that same event, or did you look at different events also? That's important because sometimes memories stack on top of themselves. Okay. And so, yeah, and write what you thought about in the chat, share it with us briefly, if that's okay with you. Right. And so, yeah. And so, yeah, if it's multiple events, if that happened, sometimes there's multiple events that boil down to a connecting emotion or distress. For example, if you felt devalued or worthless, and there were several events that caused you to feel that way, those memories will connect to each other neurologically. See how that works? And so you'll be thinking about some event, one thing that happened, but then your brain goes to another thing or to another thing. And you're like, well, wait, it went to 3 different things. Well, yeah, it went to 3 different things because there's a theme there that we're looking for. And so in a session, I would notice that thing. Okay. And so now you go through that, and that's you write down just, what is your thought about what images cropped up. You don't have to write too thoroughly now because we're here, right? But more importantly is, what emotional words would you put to how you felt under bilateral stimulation when you were looking at the event? So when you were looking at, let's say, because I'm looking at the girlfriend broke up with me. That's one of the things. Okay. So when you're looking at girlfriend broke up with me, all right. When you thought about that, and when you thought about mentally breaking down and screaming when it first happened, what emotions were cropping up for you during bilateral stimulation? Were you sad? Were you upset? Were you anxious? Were you angry? And so you write those words down. How did you feel? I felt devalued. I felt worthless. I felt, betrayed. Get creative with the words and how you describe it, and just write down, the single words that would describe what it is you felt, and then write the intensity of the emotion. So let's recognize the intensity of it. 0 to 10, 10 being breaking down and screaming would be a 10. So somewhere between nothing and that, where did it land? At the height of the exercise. So maybe what you'll find is in the beginning of the exercise, you thought of this distressing thing that happened, and you're like a 6. There's definitely distress there. You can feel it. Notice too where in your body. Do a body scan. Where in my body do my feelings? Am I feeling a hole in my chest, or sick to my stomach, or what have you? Okay. And so sometimes if you're unclear about the emotional words, doing a body scan and noticing and being aware of where in your body you felt the emotion can be useful. All right. It's part of the technique. But write down the intensity during the height of the exercise, during that 2 minutes that we did the bilateral stimulation. And then how'd you feel towards the end or the low end of it? So sometimes different things will happen in session. Sometimes people will get spikes like this. Sometimes people will boom, they'll spike up in this. Sometimes people will have dead inside. They won't think anything at all. So we got sad. Here's a big one, really sad, right? And so, yeah. And so now take that sadness. Maybe you felt really sad in the beginning. So I'll ask Ryan, where were you at the end of the exercise? If you're Ryan, you want to tell us in the chat. Really sad in the beginning, or did it come down at all? That's what I'm looking for. So 0 to 10, give me a number for how sad and a number for, at the end of it. So that's what we'll often find. So somebody might be a 6 or 7 or 8, right? Really distressed. And then they might be a 2 by the end, which would be great if it went that way. All right. So what we're looking for is we want to bring down the distressed emotions down to a 1 or 2 by holding this thing in our head under bilateral stimulation, giving yourself permission in a safe environment to feel the emotions. You start. Okay. So Ryan A, using Ryan as an example, he was 9 to 4. So man, he was really sad, 9 level sad. Now, just during that couple minutes, he went down to a 4. Now, in session with you, what I would do is I would go to another event that was similar to the stimulus that what you thought of. Maybe not exactly the same, but similar. I think it was involving a parent or something. So we'd go into that. And then you might get a 6, for the next 2 minutes, but then it's down to a 3, right? And then maybe it's down to a 2 or a 1 by a 3rd or 4th iteration. And now we know that we've kind of reprocessed that event and put it in a different set of emotional connotations to it. We've allowed ourselves to bring that distress level down and associate now acceptance and not having distress to that event versus high distress to that event. 9 is really high, right? And so you had neurologically coupled high distress and sadness to that event. And now we are relearning when you bring it down to a 2, like in this sense, brought it down to a 4. 4 is not where we want to land at the end of it, like when all said and done, but 4 is much better. You're now putting a different, neural connection to a different set of emotions that are no longer distressing when you get it down to a 1 or 2. And so you're relearning essentially how to associate that event in your mind. You're neurologically relearning emotions for that event. And so that's the goal of what you do. And now after you've wrote down your numbers and your emotional words, ask yourself, what does this thing mean to me right now? What meaning do I place on this, if any at all? And a lot of times you'll find there's new meaning that you'll place on it, on something once you've gotten those emotional distress levels down to 1 or 2. And that's it, guys. That's the exercise. And you can do this as often as you would like. I recommend you do it in the evening. You can go to YouTube, and it's something called EMDR self-directed. And it's just a stupid light ball that goes back and forth. And you just do the same thing. Instead of my fingers, you look at the light, and you go through the exercise the same way we just did for free on Jan's channel, so that you could guys have this information. And you'll find this is extremely useful, extremely valuable tool, and stupidly powerful considering how simple it is, right? And a couple of other techniques too would be to, if you're distressed about something on a consistent basis, keep a journal of that throughout the day and then EMDR it later. You can do it in the middle of the day if you have some distress crop up, if you're able to break away and go somewhere safe and private, or you can save it for the evening. Now, this can be emotionally tiring, which is why I don't recommend. Yep, that's the one I use, in fact. All right. And so it can be emotionally tiring. So I don't recommend that you do this in the beginning of the day, unless you're having a lot of distress in the beginning of the day you want to process through. All right. Save it for the end. And here's the other reason why, too. It'll help you sleep. When you're stimulating the hemispheres, it's kind of simulating what happens in REM sleep, too, right? Anxiety comes up, sleep is often compromised. So when you do this and you start processing through stuff, what happens is your brain will continue that process, the processing that you started into sleep, because it's closer to where your sleep is. And now it's like studying something right before bed in a sense, so now you're going to your brain's going to do some work for you as you're in rest to uncouple and unlearn, those distressed feelings and emotions, and relearn new feelings and emotions that are better serving you. And that is how you use this exercise. It's very powerful. And you guys are I just gave you guys this shit honestly will change your life, man. I don't even know what else to say. This will change your life. This simple thing.
And this, I wasn't planning on doing the show, guys, at all. But I did the session with Paul after we did the show a couple weeks ago. And basically, I think it was last week, really. But like I said, I was experiencing some high levels of anxiety. I think it was a combination of a bunch of life events and just taking a fuckload of pre-workout every day and going to the gym and just tweaking out and feeling really, really very bad. And I was holding it together for the show and everything. But it was a very unpleasant experience. And then I sat down and I did the session with him on Zoom, and it was just mind blowing how effective and immediate the relief was. So for you guys, just so you know, Paul does, if you just go to apexmindset.net, you can see Paul. This is his website. And then, he has, you can book him online here. They have coaching agreements, all that stuff. It's very simple. You could book 1 hour or 2 hours with him. This is all available on his website, apexmindset.net, for you guys that want to take it to another level. I personally believe his rates are extremely affordable for the quality of service that this guy delivers. And, like I said, we're in it. Paul and I, we're here to coach you out of needing us. We're not here to keep you on a subscription plan and and you just need this next course, and you just need this next thing, and this next whatever. Like, we want to heal you. Like, that's the true sign of a wonderful teacher, is to heal his students, heal their broken thinking, and go out there and, like, dude, and like, we're not some wise sages. Like, Paul and I love to fucking have sex and like bang hot girls and fucking party and make money, and but if you're fucked up in the head, you're not going to be able to do that. You're not going to be able to book a flight down to Miami at the drop of a hat like me and Paul can do. You're not going to be able to talk to girls and source them, easily. You're not going to be able to get in the gym and build the body that you want, right? And these things will absolutely sabotage your life. So don't wait until you're finally miserable in your 40s to step up and handle this part of your life. Okay, handle it now. If this is something, and inside yourself, if you're watching me right now, if you need help. And if you don't need help, that's fine. But if you do need help, reach out, man. Talk to one of us, book a session with one of us. We'll talk to you. And obviously Paul's the expert though, and he can get more like, mental results for you.
Yeah, quicker, more efficient results is really what it boils down to, and making sure you're not getting stuck. I mean, the reason you hire a coach isn't always because of the answers they have; it's the accountability and keeping you on an azimuth, as we say when we do land navigation, which is on that direction you want to go. You know what I mean? It's you might know a lot of stuff. I mean, I certainly, as an entrepreneur, for example, I know stuff, but I still talk to my coaches and people that are particularly Rich as my coach now, because he'll tell me, okay, like, you're going off in left field, bro. You need to and steer it around and do it that way. You know what I mean? And that's what it is. It's that accountability. But even when we're doing mental conditioning, that's the same thing too. You could be doing the EMDR, thinking you're getting the results that you want and you feel better, but then all of a sudden you have patterns that are still not good, and you're going, I don't know, so with somebody with actual EMDR therapist, or somebody that has a multi-disciplined approach like myself, will be able to figure out where you're maybe going in a less efficient way and make it more efficient and effective for you. And that's the way it is. If I have a business coach and he can tell me how to make $1 million by next year, I would rather have him than the guy who's going to tell me how to make $1 million in 15 years. You know what I mean? And so let's do the same thing with your mental health and fitness, because you don't have any time to waste. Honestly, your relationships are suffering. Your results in your life are suffering. You're suffering. And so why are you wasting your time trying and dicking around with stuff and only getting a little bit of results, and then not investing in yourself, right, to get massive results? Example, guy breaks up with a girl. Well, you want to spend the next year and a half ruminating over it? Or do you want to be to the same place you'll be in a year and a half from now in a few weeks to maybe a month or two, right? Like, your life's too important to waste your time, and that's why we're here.
So listen, guys, if you want Paul, go to apexmindset.net. Hit him up. We're going to wrap up Inner Game July this Friday. So here's the lineup. Tomorrow, Tokyo Crypto Show. Going to talk crypto. Markets are coming back. Thursday, King Dre, Afi Kingdom, and me. The trifecta, talking about deep level inner game. Friday, free consultation Friday. The victory ceremony. I'm going to be shouting out some members in the Hot Dude Army out there who have been consistently seeing through Inner Game July. We just hope that this was able to help you guys. And until then, we'll catch you next time.